To read Back to Reality, the best-selling novel of the Bestseller Experiment by the two Marks, go to bestsellerexperiment.com/back to reality.
And subscribe to this podcast to get loads of extra bonuses. Go to bestsellerexperiment.com/subscribe. Let's run the show.
Angela Marsons, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a lovely bright day and looking forward to having a nice chat.
Wonderful stuff. Your story is phenomenal. I mean, when I started looking at the numbers for this, my jaw was dropping because, and this is probably out of date now, but you've sold well over 3 million copies of your books in just over 3 years, which is just phenomenal. What I'd like to talk about, if that's okay with you, is we'll talk about your journey to publication, how you got there. And I've been looking at your blog and stuff, and you started writing when you were at primary school. I mean, did you always dream of being a writer?
I did once. I wrote a piece. It was basically an assignment we were supposed to do about our school holidays, what we'd done in the holidays, where we'd been, and we hadn't been anywhere, so I wasn't sure what to write. So I just made up this story about the relationship between the rocks and the sea, and just pictured it. And it was the only merit point, an A, I ever really got at school. But in writing that little piece, it kind of, I suppose that unlocked in me the desire to write and express how I felt through writing. So from then on, I used to make up situations and then record and write down how I felt about them. So I would pretend that my dad had left us, and then I'd outpour all my feelings and, to get them all on paper. And, I'd exhaust myself. I'd be crying, and he'd only gone to the pub. But, at the time it felt very real, and, I'd do all sorts of things just to explore the emotions of it. I told my brother he was adopted, and I just wanted to see how he'd react, really, and I wrote it all down, and, so I tended to want to explore people's feelings, I think, at that point.
So you were like a proper method actor. You were feeling the moment.
It was, until my mum told me I've got to stop doing that kind of thing, because it was just upsetting people. But then an English teacher, I think I was about 12, my English teacher said that she would like to bring in a couple of books that were above my reading age, but she'd like me to read them. And they were Andrea Newman books, which, were a bit above my reading age. But when I started reading those, I realised actually I wanted to be writing these stories instead of reading them. And then I just started to write stories about anything. So it was lots and lots of short stories at that stage, just jotting down anything that came to mind. And just wanted to put words together and make people feel something. That was what I wanted to do.
We hear this so often, all you need is just one person just saying, yes, you can do this. It can be a teacher, a mentor, a parent, or whatever, just someone. Were there always teachers encouraging you?
Well, there was that one really, and other than that, nobody knew, that I wanted to write, because I come from, an area, and I'm sure a lot of aspiring writers will know exactly what I'm saying here. I was encouraged to learn to type. That was,
right.
Your job prospects were going to be a secretarial, office clerical, and that was what you were encouraged to aspire to. So I did all of those things, and obviously typing now comes in quite handy for when I'm working on the second draft. But you weren't really encouraged to have aspirations above the realistic, to be honest. So it was always something I kind of did over and above, what was expected. It was always in my spare time, around work, around school, that kind of thing. So I didn't really let people know too much what I was up to. I just kept it for myself, really.
Yeah. Again, that's something we've heard before is people don't like to go out and declare that they're doing this, because, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I write, it's a process of failing a little less every time, and it's hard putting it out there. But did you sort of always harbour a secret dream, or what was it that made you think, actually I might be able to earn some money from this? What put you in sort of pointed you towards this as a career?
I think the dream always for me was to write for a living, and it wasn't about the money. It was being able to exist and pay, the bills that I had back then by writing, and that dream seemed, completely unachievable, but that was always the dream. It was about seeing books on shelves, and I think the dream changes over time. I think all writers want to see, their books, in bookshops and on shelves and that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but these days there are so many more routes to publishing. And eventually my dream became that, I wanted to just share my work with people. I wanted, people to read and enjoy what I wrote, and whatever format that took. That was okay. The books on, bookshop shelves became less important than sharing and, getting emails from people who've been touched or, have enjoyed your work so much that they're prompted to contact you.
Yeah.
In effect, I don't really care how they've read it, if you know what I mean, whether it's an ebook, an audio book, or, a paperback from the shops. It's more about that they read it and enjoyed the experience. And that's, what you were saying. Yes, days are hard to write, and, it doesn't get any easier. In many ways, it does get harder. But that is something that drives you forward all the time, is that you want the readers to continue to enjoy the journey, and the stories that are in your head, really.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting what you're saying about your goal became, I just want people to read this. Was this because, and you've spoken about this on your blog, about rejection, getting rejections. Was it, because you started out, you were entering short story competitions. Were you also getting in touch with publishers and submitting your books to them? And what sort of response were you getting?
Because I've had no training or anything, at one point I just wanted some kind of proof that, I could write. And I was entering competitions in Writers' News and Writing Magazine. And the first time I was shortlisted in one of the Writers' News magazine competitions was just it. That must have carried me forward for about 15 years because it was such a boost that somebody had actually read the story that I'd written and thought it had any kind of merit at all. And that was the first validation that I got outside of, my partner, who's been with me on the journey for over 30 years now. She's never lost the faith and would always keep driving me forward. 5-6 rejections could land, on the doormat some days, and she would always insist it was their loss and that it would happen.
Yes.
And, she would find a way to get me back to the desk and the table, even if it was, well, just go and sit there. Just go and sit at the table. And strangely enough, there'd be a notepad, a nice fresh notepad and a pack of pencils, because I always write the first draft with pencils and A4 notebooks. And so inevitably, as she well knew, my hand would crawl towards the pencil, and before I knew it, it was in my hand and I was scribbling something down. And, that process, there's nothing like it, as you know yourself. It's, there's nothing like a good sentence. It can have you cheering from the rooftops, celebrating, which sounds ridiculous, but that's what you strive for. You want to write good sentences, one after the other.
It doesn't sound ridiculous, and she sounds amazing. We all need someone like that in our lives.
I do believe everybody needs a Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Now, what sort of were they just sort of blank rejections, or did you start getting feedback from publishers? And if so, what sort of things were they saying?
Yeah, I sometimes got feedback. Sometimes people would ask to read the whole manuscript, which, as you know yourself, that is, that creates such a buzz, such an excitement. And the general consensus would always be, we like it, we just don't love it. And that was so frustrating. It was like, what can I do to make you love it?
I know.
And that was the general thing. It was like, yeah, we like it, we like this, but we just don't love it enough, to take it to the next stage. And in a way, that can be more frustrating than being a million miles away, because when it's just a flat no with a compliment slip, you can fool yourself. Maybe they didn't read it. They were too busy, just got lost in the pile. But when you know that they've actively read it and still said, nah, it's a bit like that's a bit more crushing, I think.
You eventually moved on to start self-publishing. Was that sort of born out of stuff you, I'm going to do this myself, or what drove you to do that?
Well, in 2012, I did get an agent, and that didn't work out. 2 years later, I was dropped after the agent tried to sell the first 3 Kim Stone books and was unsuccessful. So I was dropped. And these other 2 books that I got were non-crime. And so I heard about the Amazon platform and I just thought, do you know what? I've got nothing at this stage. I have nothing to lose. I've been dropped by the agent. If he couldn't sell the books, nobody can sell the books. So let's just pop them on Amazon, do the best I can and see what happens. So that was my 2 non-crime books. And it was a lovely experience because, I could see, selling 1 every week or 2 a month or something. There was still a buzz in that. It was like, well, somebody's buying the books and reading them. So, I'm quite happy with that. It wasn't enough to make a living. But it was at a time, I suppose it was a bit of a rebellion to everything that had happened with the agent. And it was just like, I have nothing to lose at this point, so I'll give this a go. But then not long afterwards, Keshini Naidu, who I'd worked with at the agency, contacted me to say that she'd submitted Silent Scream to Bookouture, and she explained all about it. And I just managed to get a full-time job after being out of work. And it financially was the absolute worst time of our lives. We were borrowing money to pay the mortgage. We were borrowing money. I couldn't get a job. Amazon turned me down for a job in their warehouse working nights, which was
the
crushing,
irony.
Absolutely crushing. Even they didn't want me. So it was the absolute worst time. And so I just managed to get a full-time job working 12-hour night shifts. And I was contacted by Keshini to say she'd done this, but I couldn't be enthusiastic about it because as far as I was aware, I knew what the response was going to be, which was, we like it, but we don't like it enough. So it was lovely of her to do, but I was a bit like, oh, okay, that's nice. Anyway, let's get ready for work. So I think it was the end of the week when Claire Board, the publishing manager or director she was, contacted me to say, I'm reading Silent Scream and loving it. Have you got any other ideas? And that was an email I couldn't type quick enough. I couldn't even find the keys on the keyboard. I was stumbling all over the place trying to reply. I was like, have you got, there were 3 books already written that had been rejected. So, and then, you want ideas? Here's some ideas. And I must have sent her about 20, in my eagerness. And the following week, they asked me to sign for 4 books. Which then became 8 books, which then became 16 books. So, yeah.
I just want to go back on a couple of things because it's an amazing story. You said you had 3 books already written. With all the rejection and everything else, what kept you writing? What kept you going? What made you think, okay, I've got Kim Stone, I'm going to keep going with Kim Stone, even though I'm getting rejections? What was it that kept you going?
I think it was because I did have faith in the character, but it was also, I seemed to have spent a lot of years writing books that I thought agents and publishers would like. And that didn't seem to have done me a great deal of good. So all of the rejections that came back, when I parted ways with the agent, the last recommendation from the agent was you need to change this character completely. But none of the rejections from publishers had said that the character was an issue. So I didn't trust that, to be honest. I thought, no, I think I've got something with this character. I like her. I want to discover more about her. I think she's got a lot to say. And I don't particularly want her to be the most likeable character because that's not always real life. Some people aren't as likeable, but I wanted her to have redeeming qualities, that even if you didn't like her that much because she's a bit rude, you could understand that she was driven, passionate for the underdog and big on justice and that kind of thing. So I think that was it. I still had faith in the character and wanted to just carry on trying to make something of that, that character.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you were self-publishing, and these weren't crime books, were there any lessons that you learned from that you've carried over into your professional career with Bookouture?
I think it is just try and make the book the absolute best it can be. And I think that doesn't matter whether you're self-publishing or with a publisher. I still send books off after having gone through 4, 5, 6 drafts because I don't want to keep my editor busy. I prefer, my editor to come back and say, I can't find a lot on this. That's the dream, Yes. So it is to put as much work in beforehand. And, just when you think you've finished it, put it aside and then go through it again. And, that analysis of, looking at pace. I don't use any complicated methods. My plan is just on A4 pieces of paper. I don't use any software. I use Word. But it's understanding, okay, there's 7 chapters there. There have been an awful lot of typing. We need a bit of action, a lot of speaking, a lot of, chatting, conversation, So it's looking at it and thinking, well, if I was reading that, I'd be a bit bored with all this conversation. It might be interesting stuff, but let's have a bit of action in the middle.
Right.
Moving things around and doing the absolute best that you can, whether you're self-publishing or, with a publisher, just get it as tight and as clean as you possibly can. Because if you're submitting as well, I do think editors appreciate that and they can see the time and effort that's gone into trying to get it as clean and polished as possible.
Fantastic. I've got some listener questions, so we'll rattle through these if that's okay.
Yeah.
First one is from Pernilla Hughes, just talking about your 3 million sales. She said, wow, how impressive is that? My question is, and this may not apply to you because this might hark back to self-publishing, but did you divvy up your time on the writing and the marketing? And is that a natural discipline that you would stick to? I mean, when you were self-publishing, were you aware of the marketing? Did you do much of that?
Not at all, because I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I literally just popped the books on Amazon. But for me, marketing is more because obviously with Bookouture, the fabulous marketing people, Kim Nash and Noelle, who do, they're so passionate. But for me, social media is a big part of the journey as well. So dividing the time between writing and keeping in touch with the readers, because, I respond to every single email, message, tweet, everything. There's somebody messaged me a couple of weeks ago and said, I know you probably have a team of people that reply to these things. And I sent a message back saying, no, it's just me. It is just me, honestly. So the balancing that, because I suppose, it is seen as a form of marketing, but also it's just important to acknowledge readers when, they tweet you and they Facebook message you, because, that's what you dream of. You dream of connecting with readers. So from a marketing point of view, I just try and keep in touch with the readers as closely as I possibly can.
And do you carve out a particular part of the day for that?
Generally, once I've written enough words, I may have a quick peek in the morning to see what's going on social media. But then in my writing room, which is where I am right now, and you can tell that because you can't hear the parrot, because he's swearing a lot at the moment, and I didn't think that was going to go down well. So I've gone to the writing room. But in here, I don't have a computer normally, or a phone, or an iPad, and it's just notepads, pencils, and research books. So I tend not to bring anything like that in to distract me, and that all goes on in the living room. So that's normally later in the day I catch up on Facebook and emails and things like that after I've managed to get some words down.
Excellent. And we love a sweary parrot. So if your sweary parrot wants to make an appearance,
he's a nightmare, he really is.
Where does he get it from?
I have no clue. I'm completely innocent and I deny all knowledge.
I've got a question from Gareth Watkins who says, I'm a big fan of Angela's. My main question is, how on earth she writes so quickly? 10 books in 4 years, I think. Do you worry about burning out as well? Is that an issue? Or do you just keep going?
I think because people sometimes think the first 3 books were already written and they were all published in 2015. So I'm contracted to write 2 books a year, which is absolutely manageable and enjoyable because I used to write around full-time work. So I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, get a couple of hours in before, I went off to work. And then I'd be at the desk again when I came back from work. And this was to my own deadlines. This was when, I didn't have a publisher. And so my view is I'd be doing it anyway. I'd be writing anyway, whether I was writing for a publisher and for a deadline. If I was going out to work full time, I'd still be writing around that. So for me, the schedule, because I am lucky enough now to be able to call it work, I love the speed of digital publishing because there's always something going on. There's a cover reveal, then the book's on NetGalley and then it's published. And then the next one, there's a cover reveal. And so I actually love the speed of digital publishing because, like I said, there's always something going on, something to look forward to. Something to share with the readers. So, 2 a year is manageable for me.
That you've kind of tacked onto what I touched on, what I think is the next listener question, which is from Michi Yanakowicz, who says, my question would be, can you outline the exact process and plan of attack that resulted in selling 3 million books? I mean, I guess having 3 books in the bank really, really helps because you can just launch, boom, and there's 3 books instantly that Bookouture can work with. But of course, it does work so fast, doesn't it? Because I was looking, you've got Dead Memories coming in February 2019, but that's ebook only first, then there's a physical edition later. Is that how it works now? You do the digital first, then a paperback later?
Well, because the paperback deal came after the digital deal. So, the books were ebook and print on demand initially. And then Bonnier published the first 3 books paperback into the shops. But of course, by then I was sort of like on book 4. So it was well behind. And then when Bookouture went into Hachette, they are now publishing the paperbacks. But of course, they're publishing 2 a year. But I'm writing 2 a year. So the paperbacks are always going to be, slightly behind because I'm still writing 2 a year. And they're publishing 2 a year. So I think it was book 6, Dead Souls, that was the last one to publish, not long before Christmas. And we've got, book 10 coming out next month. Oh, goodness me, yes, next month. But yeah, I do love the pace. I think it's different things work for different people. And there was no plan. It was just when Silent Scream came out, and bear in mind this was the book that was, rejected by every major publisher, which again is something I did want to say to any aspiring writers. No offence, but publishers don't always get it right. Sometimes that book's now sold over 1 million copies on its own.
Oh my
and
God,
that's no disrespect to traditional publishers. I know they have so many submissions and they have to make, hard decisions. But, sometimes the readers want what the readers want, and you can't always package them up and say, well, there's no romance in the book and readers like romance. There's no romance in my books and my readers actually love that there's no romance. They want a crime book without the lovey-dovey stuff, which, there's room for everybody. There's room for people who do want to include romance and for people who don't because, readers have different tastes.
Absolutely.
So, there was no, I don't think, plan of action. It was just after the success of Silent Scream, it was like, let's give the readers what they want. They want more Kim Stone and we've got the books available. So, let's get them out there.
I mean, this is like Decca turning down the Beatles though, isn't it? I mean, first of all, you've got an agent out there who's missed out on 3 million books worth of commission. You've got every major publishers, but then you could argue that I think the Bookouture model is such that I don't think a regular publisher would have published them like that? Do you think? I think
No,
with Bookouture,
no,
they have a very different model, don't they?
The model that they have enabled me to give up work. I think had it been a traditional route, I would probably have been working for, at a full-time job for much longer. So I think that enabled me to give up work much, sooner than I might have done. But I love the model. I love the model. I love the excitement of all the ebook and the fast movement of the process. So, if I was doing a book a year or a book every 18 months, that would just be more time pontificating, really. And then I'd probably still only use 3 to 4 months to write the book. So, I'd spend an awful lot of time sitting around eating crisps and then panic and do it in the last few months. So I love the model, and it definitely works for me, which is, why I absolutely always happy to sign for more books. Some people have said, well, you could have, should have moved on, but it's what works for me. And loyalty is a huge, huge thing for me. They gave me a chance. Without them, there wouldn't be any books, and I wouldn't be in this position, where I pinch myself every day, because of how lucky I am. But I wouldn't be here without Bookouture, and it's that simple. So, as long as I've told Oliver, the head of Bookouture, that, he will have to employ security to throw me out, because I'm not going anywhere.
I mean, again, you've kind of answered a listener question before I've asked it. Catherine Kendall Boucher said, it'd be really interesting to hear a take on both self-publishing and working with a publisher. What have you found to be the pros and cons? Which do you prefer? I mean, Bookouture, I mean, they don't give big advances, do they? That's the thing. But they're digital first, but they're very, very fast. And I guess if you're writing great crime, which is a genre that readers gobble up really quickly, and they really want more, that's got to work really well for you, hasn't it?
It has because, what I like about working with a publisher is that, I think I do work well to deadlines, and not made up ones that, I've just popped in my diary because, I want it finished by. Having, real deadlines with a publisher that, is going to come breathing down my neck if I haven't sent an email with an attachment works well for me, and does keep me, does keep me focused and working, which is, what I want. If I was self-publishing, I probably wouldn't be as disciplined, because I tend to need somebody to be saying, I want this by a week next Thursday. So I think that's the reason I would prefer to be with Bookouture.
Excellent. Jeff White asks, and this might be a bit of a redundant question, but Jeff asks, it would be interesting to get a comparison of sales before and after signing with Bookouture. So, and also, how effective does she find their marketing? I'm guessing the answer is very.
Well, I can't say it's done me any harm. My sales of my self-published books prior to signing with Bookouture was probably about, we're talking probably double digits, maybe in the 60s, 70s, but we didn't go into triple digits. So we didn't reach 100 of my self-published books. And yet after, what I didn't do was I didn't actually market the books at all, even after signing with Bookouture, because I didn't want people to feel that I was swindling them by pointing them in the direction of these two books that weren't crime, because it was clear that people had taken Kim Stone to their hearts and were passionate about her and the team and the stories. So I didn't want people to think that, that these were crime books or related in any way. So I didn't market them or mention them at all. But people started finding them of their own accord, and obviously that affected the sales completely, but I still didn't market them. And then Bookouture asked if I wanted them to take the books on and, repackage them, re-edit them with me and kind of, polish them up and make them pretty kind of thing. And That was what we did.
Let's talk about Kim Stone. Listener Jackie Kirkham, she says, how do you keep a character like that fresh? Do you ever worry about getting bored of writing about the same series or character? I mean, you mentioned earlier that you love Kim Stone. Yeah. Where does she come from, and how do you keep her fresh?
I think she comes from the character's been in my head for an awfully long time, and even in my self published books, there are characters that are, quite brusque and I suppose to some degree rude and obnoxious. And I kind of ignored this voice in my head because even I didn't like her very much. So I thought, well, if I don't like you very much, well, nobody else is going to really like you. And then it just, after we were talking about the rejection, after so much rejection, it was like, I've got to write the book I want to write. So it was like, let's let this character out. We're going to base her in the Black Country. No publisher's going to like that because it's not big city. But I've got to just write the book I want to write. And Silent Scream was my first attempt at a crime novel. And I honestly expected to hit a wall at about 40,000 words and go, okay, well, at least I've tried. I let her out the box. I tried it in the Black Country. I got to 40,000 words, couldn't think of any more plot lines, died a death. But at least I would have known that I'd done it. And it was at about that stage that the pencil just seemed to take on a life of its own, and I just couldn't stop. And I got to the end of it and thought, oh, it's a book. It's done. That actually makes sense. And I was probably, incredibly surprised. And that was how Silent Scream was born.
Fantastic. And you said, and what I love about this is you wrote the book that you wanted to write, because I know, having worked for a publisher, I know they would say, oh, it's going to be tricky selling a book set in the Black Country. That means we could only sell it in Birmingham and Wolverhampton and whatever, But you're now selling internationally 3 million copies, which just goes to show that kind of received wisdom is a kind of a thing of the past, isn't it?
I think it is. I think that, I think some people, they have enough of reading about crime in big cities. And I think as long as you give people things that they can recognise, it's like every area has its ups and downs. The Black Country, yes, it's dark, industrial, smoky, but there are also great communities there. There are, snatches of green belt and, so people can understand that. They can relate to it. So in a way, it doesn't matter where it is, as long as you give it relatable options and that's what people like, because they can all picture a place that's like that, whether they've been to the Black Country, or not. They can picture a place that's got, an industrial past and, trading estates and, lots of houses, but also the odd field and common and, this. So I think that, as long as the place is relatable, it doesn't have to be big city. And the joy of it is exploring the areas that And, I think in Silent Scream, or it was Evil Games, I spoke about one pub in particular, and I spoke about it in a little bit of a derogatory manner. Oh, my goodness, did I get some emails about that one, and had to subsequently, in another book, make it clear that I had nothing wrong, no issues with the Bull and Bladder, as the pub is called. So, you just have to be a bit careful sometimes.
The Bull and Bladder.
No, exactly, that's the thing. I kind of made it in the book like it sounds, because I think it's such a cool name for a pub.
Yeah.
But apparently they do more than cheese cobs, I was told. So that was just a word of warning there. But your own history of your own areas, and I think that helps to add something to the authenticity of the setting.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next for you, Angela?
Carry on writing the Kimstown book. So this one's coming out in February and the next one will be out later this year. That's what I'm working on now. So just keep on. I'm always a couple of books in front with what I'm writing about, because I tend to pick subjects that interest me so that, I'll enjoy the research. So it's normally an idea or, something that I'm intrigued with, myself. And that's what starts the idea for the plot. So,
wonderful.
As I'm normally a couple of, and that's how I tend to keep a fresh something will just come on the television. I'll think, oh, I want to research that. And somehow it becomes a plot for the book. Well,
if we see a plot with a killer parrot who swears at everyone, we'll know you've probably run out of ideas. But,
that'll be the time to say enough is enough. Kill her off.
But you're an inspiration to us all. Your story is just amazing. Long may your success continue. And Angela Marsons, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book? Quitting the day job? Becoming a best-selling author? Since 2016, we've interviewed and studied the advice of over 500 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 1 billion books. And in the Bestseller Academy, we've incorporated powerful and proven strategies for success, inspiring fiction and non-fiction authors just like you to reach new heights and write their best book ever. Ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, coaching, and the most inspiring and exclusive community of like-minded writers? Well, your bestseller dreams are just a click away. Join us today at bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. Do you know what? Angela sounds like kind of an auntie who'd be having a chat with over Christmas dinner. That story is got to be one of the most inspiring interviews I think I've heard, because it really, when we interview million-selling authors who've been doing it for 20, 30 years, they're already kind of way beyond that incredible moment where everything happened for them. But that to me was so inspiring, such a beautiful story. And I just think that Amazon moment, that moment where she couldn't even get a job at the night shift on Amazon.
Oh man, yeah.
How beautiful is that? Like how ironically beautiful is it that she's now become probably one of the biggest selling books on Amazon, having not even been able to get a job in the warehouse?
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
It's an amazing story. And, she had rejection after rejection. And it's interesting because I've spoken to editors who did reject her. So that, they loved the writing, but there was this thing, can we sell it? I mean, how many times have we heard that thing? We like it, but we don't know how to sell it. We like it, we don't love it. That thing of getting 99% there, but just not going over the edge, not clicking in that way. But she kept going. And her Julie, everyone needs a Julie like her Julie, the person who laid out the pencils and notepads out for her. I think that's just such a wonderful, wonderful story. And she got dropped by her agent. I mean, this is the thing we talk about. If you give up, you are guaranteed to fail. But if you keep going, there's always a chance, and I think, bless her, she's, just an incredible success story.
I love it. And actually, it's so important, Mark. I mean, Julie's been such an incredible support for her. And I'm going to say this because it's so important for people to realize this. We're indie authors, or even published authors, but particularly indie authors that don't necessarily have a team around them, a publishing company, even maybe an editor or an agent. You're on your own. I reckon if you're listening to this show now, there's a high chance that your 99.9% of people listening to this show are on their own, trying to write their book and live their dream. They don't have an editor, an agent. They just have the dream. I really want to stress to everyone that you can't do this on your own. Now, I don't mean that you can't be an indie author. What I mean by that is you need a group, or you need an individual that supports you through the good and the bad times. I know this just through my personal life of, just through, losing my wife. Like the community and the support was huge. But I can't begin to stress when you hear it with Angela and her partner, Julie, that helped her through it. You need someone. Now, that might not be your spouse. It might not be your best friend, because they might not get your dream. They might not understand what it is to have a passion about writing. They might not get who you are, and they might not feel what you've been through in your life and why you have to write, why this is something you just have to do regardless. But you have to find a group of people that will support you, whether that's a community or a local writing group, for example, an online group. I mean, the BXP team we're seeing is one of those anchors of support. But if you're trying to do this alone, you can't, because it's too lonely a journey, I think, to battle with the demons. And also, who do you celebrate with when the good times come as well? And I think Angela's very inspiring, that you could tell just how much support that meant. Like, it was almost like without Julie, I don't think this would have ever have happened. Yeah.
We all look for that validation, don't we? I recorded an interview yesterday that will be going live in a couple of weeks with an author who, in a roundabout way, got that validation from Jennifer Aniston. That's a longer story, But if you want
can't wait to hear that
subscribe to the podcast, and you'll hear that story in a couple of weeks. It's an incredible one.
Wow.
So yeah, hang in there.
Fantastic.
It doesn't have to be a member of the cast of Friends, as you say. It can be anyone.
But you know what? It begs the question mark. You know, we do spend a lot of time on this show, and rightfully so, talking about the craft, how to be a better writer. We talk about how to be a better marketer. We talk about the importance of book covers. We talk about lots of the logistics about creating a book and getting it out there, which are all essential and all very, very important. But do you know what? When it boils down to the foundational moment of becoming an author and finishing that book, I think having that support, having somebody that believes in you, someone that will keep telling you, you keep going, someone that will put a blank piece of paper, a pad in front on your desk and say, just go and sit at your desk. Just go and sit at your desk. You know, I think without that, everything else really pales into insignificance, because without the book, without the finished book, nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so find your Julie. I think that should be a T-shirt.
Yeah. Get your Julie.
It's another Bestseller Experiment quote. Find your Julie.
This goes out to all the Julies in the world. Thank you.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? If you are a Julie, if you are one of those people that encourages your spouse to write, if you're one of those people that's a teacher and tells that child who's written an amazing story at age 10 that they're amazing and they could potentially be an author one day, if you're one of those people who will read the manuscript of a friend, even though it's awful, but still find the good in it and encourage them to keep going and write something even better. If you're one of those Julies, thank you, because honestly, you make the world go round. You make the writing world happen. And I bet you we should almost ask every new interview that we do, Mark, who's your Julie?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what? And because they'll all have one. Well, they'll all have many.
Yeah.
And also, just whilst you're on this, without trying to milk this to oblivion, one of the things I often coach, Mark, in the music world, and it's very relevant, is, you know, and I've worked with people who've worked with Ed Sheeran, and like, you see these incredible multi-million selling artists, and it's their name on the front of the album. All right, it's Ed Sheeran's name on the poster. It's Ed Sheeran's name on the concert poster. But you know, when you open up, in the old days, the CD, and you look at the lineage notes, the thank yous, the people that were involved, the producer, the musicians, the people that, and you look at it in any book as well, the thank yous. Behind every individual success, there is a cast of thousands, an absolute cast of thousands. And it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how. In fact, the more successful you become, the larger that group becomes. It's just one of those things that happens. So. Yeah, who's your Julie? Come over to the Facebook group and tell us who your Julie is.
Huge thanks to Andrew for taking the time to speak to us. Yeah, and Julie, yeah. Social media went completely bonkerloid last week, right?
Yeah.
Robin, we had on the BXP page, Robin made some comment about this is Robin Sarti, who's a regular tweeter and Patreon of the show. She made some comment about she wouldn't cast Tom Cruise in her movie, and I thought that's just too good not to ask. So I put it out there, and I put a thing on Twitter based on a comment made by Robin Sarti on Facebook. If Tom Cruise wanted to be the lead in the film adaptation of your book, and he's completely wrong for the part, would you tell him to jog on? Now, this is a big budget Hollywood movie, major worldwide distribution guaranteed if he's in it. Okay. This went crazy. We haven't had anything like this since Cranston. This went absolutely bonkers. Steve Kavanagh got involved, who's been a guest on the show, which is great. And, you know, Steve writes his great thrillers, and he's a great actor, big range, love him. Why wouldn't you want him? And then Claire Allen, an author who I'd love to get on the show, actually, maybe talk about this, but she doesn't like funny enough, she doesn't like some of Tom Cruise's political opinions. There we go, coming full circle again.
There we go.
And she's I wouldn't want him in my film. So, you know, this is the thing, you know, this takes me back because Terry Pratchett used to tell a story about him and Neil Gaiman when Good Omens first came out. They went to Hollywood. They'd been courted by Hollywood. They met all these execs who wanted to make a movie of it. And, of course, it's coming out on TV really, really soon. It's taken over nearly 30 years to come to the screen. And They had meetings with execs. And the hero of Good Omens is an 11-year-old boy called Adam, right? A British, if home counties, 11-year-old boy. And apparently this exec said to Neil and Terry, what if, okay, instead of a little boy, it was Tom Cruise. And that actually happened. Neil and Terry, apparently they had a little signal, but they said, look, if either of us is unhappy, we'll use us. What will Americans not understand? And they said, we'll say we need to talk to Mr. Biggles. Okay, we'll pretend that's our manager, Biggles. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. And so when this guy said Tom Cruise, Neil looks over at Terry, and Terry's making little aeroplane shapes going, meow. So anyway,
oh my gosh!
I just want to say for the record, there's a great role for Tom in Back to Reality if he's interested.
There is actually,
really is.
There is. It's quite interesting because I remember there's a moment when we're still very much focused on making this into a movie. In fact, so many people keep reminding us of that in the reviews. This book has to become a big Hollywood summer smash movie. But we did actually go through. I remember towards the end of the book, we had a bit of fun of actually thinking of who might be cast as all the various, because once you start to get to know your characters, not at the beginning of the book, I think it's dangerous to do it at the beginning of the book because you start thinking of that person. But towards the end of the book, when we knew and loved these characters, we started building that cast list. And I wonder if that's something a lot of people do. So if you have, we could flip this on its head, like 2 questions for our listeners to come to Facebook and Twitter on. Number 1, who wouldn't you cast as the main lead in your book? And question 2, who would you cast? Like, what would be your dream? And have you actually written a character with an actor or an actress in the back of your mind? Have you actually based that character thinking, if this did become a movie, then I'm just going to base it on them? Because I think a lot of that goes on secretly. I don't know about you, Mark, but I think it does.
Yeah. Well, my favourite quote out of this thread was from Tracy Means, who is actually Steve Kavanagh's Good Lady life partner. And she said, in the words of James Ellroy on movie adaptations, and James Ellroy wrote LA Confidential and The Black Dahlia and some great, absolutely fantastic books. James Ellroy says, they give you money for nothing, and money is the gift that no one ever returns. So for the record, we're taking the money and running on this one. Yeah. Tom, speak to our people.
Yeah, speak to our people and they'll speak to your people. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. I know exactly which character you're thinking about as well. But you'll have to read the book. You'll have to read the book to work that one out as well. We're not going to give that away, are we? Too easily anyway. So what else is happening on social media, Mark?
Well, it's we got some new listeners. Katie Ginger, who is at KTG Author, she said, hey, y'all, I'm looking for some podcast recommendations. What do you recommend? Kitty Wilson, who is at Kitty Wilson 23, said, Bestseller XP is absolutely brilliant. Well worth losing a few hours for. And a little while later, Katie came back and says, I can't believe I've only just found you. Where have you been all my life? My dog walks are getting longer so I can listen. I'm loving it. So welcome, Katie. Welcome to the fold. Welcome, Katie. It's just fantastic to hear from you. We've got Andrew Chapman, who is at Andy Chap Writer. He stumbled across the Shannon Mayer episode and the Joe Hill episode, so he's hooked now. He says, I just discovered the podcast at just the right time, but I do wish I'd found it back when you started. For me, I'm just getting started on the second draft of my first full-length novel, a horror. The hard part starts soon, writing a synopsis and finding an agent. Well, good luck with that, Andy. Keep us posted on your progress. We are here to support you.
And on that note, folks, we're in April now. April is officially Bestseller Experiment's BAF month. Do you know that, Mark? BAF month.
A what?
April is BAF month, which is Bring a Friend. So if you listen to Bestseller Experiment, this month is the month to go and tell one of your writing friends that who have never heard of this podcast to come and join us. So I'd like you to use the hashtag BAF and welcome your new listening friend. And if you can bring a group, that's obviously a bag, right? Being a group, then that's 2019's campaign. But definitely bring a friend. Let us know that you bought them so we can welcome them to the show and maybe even give them a mention and you on the show.
We've had some amazing news from one of our former guests, Catherine Ryan Howard. Now, you remember Catherine's get your ass in the chair,
I do, yeah. Okay. She was great. Yeah,
well, it's paying off. She's just signed a bit of a deal. A little bit of a deal, which is quite a big deal, actually. She signed a major deal with her American publishers, Blackstone, for 6 more books, and it's a 6-figure deal as well. It's just amazing. She's done this incredible blog about it, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes as well, because it's so wonderful. Couldn't have happened to a nicer person as well. And again, like Angela, someone who has been through the ups and downs, has faced rejection, but has kept going, has persevered. Yeah. So huge congratulations to Catherine Reinhard on that. It's wonderful news. The photo from the blog, she got exactly the same sort of plastic typewriter for Christmas when she was a little girl that I got when I was a little boy. The little the
universes are starting to line up. You see, that's a sign.
Yeah, it's
that's
all good
a sign. But congratulations, Catherine, not just for getting that deal, but we forget this. We do forget this in the moment where we celebrate someone's success. Not just for getting the deal, but just like Angela, for actually achieving what they've achieved so that they can inspire us. That's the bigger bit. 6 figures is nice. I mean, we'd take that, Mark. Would we take 6-figure deal for our book? Movie deal, maybe?
I'd get out of bed for that, yes.
I would get out of bed. Yeah. But it's what actually follows that inspires everyone else. And that's the bigger picture, folks. That's why you show up and write. It's the legacy that you're creating. So, Catherine, well done for inspiring all of our listeners. And if you missed that episode, go back and listen to it. It's got one of our classic quotes in there as well. So, all good stuff.
I know you like an ambitious public declaration. You're going to love this one.
Oh, yes.
Kevin McGill, who's at Kevin on Paper on Twitter, said, "This is a year late, but I'm binge listening. I'd like to declare that I too want my indie book, Nicholas and Company," that's Nicholas with a K, to make it to Hollywood, especially Netflix. And he's made a book trailer. So I'm going to put a link to that so you can all see this. But that's a big deal. So good luck with that, Kevin. Best of luck. Everything crossed for you.
That's the kind of declaration I love.
Oh, you love that, don't you? You really do.
I do. Yeah. I love a minute.
Meanwhile, in the real world, we got Sam J. Wright on Twitter said, "I'd set a goal of getting 6 chapters edited this weekend with 15 minutes to spare. I moved the status of the 6th chapter from first draft to revised draft. Now let's see if I can give this whole 2 chapters a day another go. I'll try and watch myself this time." So this is amazing. That's Sam hitting her public declaration with 15 minutes to spare, which is pretty darn good.
Fantastic.
The other thing that's happening in April is Camp NaNoWriMo, isn't it? And
that's right.
McLab Pub, who's at McLab Publishing, he says on Twitter, "Book 2 in the Unwitchy Witch series truly begins in prep for Camp NaNoWriMo with Bestseller Experiment pals." So yes, you're getting involved in this, aren't you, Mr. D?
I am part. Yeah. So if you're part of the BXP team, if you're part of the patrons that support this show, say it again, bestsellerexperiment.com/support. There was an incredible opportunity to join a group of avid Bestseller Experiment listeners. And basically, they created a cabin, this is what you do in Camp NaNoWriMo. It's like a mini version of the November thing, but it's still hardcore. I mean, you can choose what your level is. It's not necessarily, I have to write 50,000 words in the month of November, but in April, you choose what you want to achieve. But everyone in your cabin can hang out. It's like a virtual camp. I saw this post and I thought, this is brilliant. And I've got to put the words where my mouth is, as it were. And I joined in. So I'm part of this cabin. So I'll be reporting back to you over the next few weeks as to how my I can't believe I'm even saying this, 50,000 word target for my book, which I have to write. I actually want to write this book. I know I've written a lot of it, but it's this book that I talked about. It's called Stage 5, Making Peace with Cancer. It's a book that I have to write for a number of my friends, actually, strange enough, since Jen passed away with cancer, and this book was in the makings for about 4 or 5 years. Quite a few close friends have now told me that they're struggling with stage 1 to stage 4 cancer. And so they talk about how you need to have an avatar to write this book for. You know, even if you're writing a novel, you should be writing it for somebody, whether it's a child that you know, or a parent, or a friend, so that you make it personal to them. Well, the universe keeps sending me more and more avatars, and I just have to write this. So I'm getting my head down. I don't know how I'm going to do it, to be honest, Mark. This is going to require. This is the bit, right? So we're all talking about this. I have no idea how I'm going to be able to do like 1,667 words a day. But because I know this is super important, I'm going to make it happen. And I've now got this accountability of all, co-presenter of Bestseller Experiment. I guess I'm allowed to screw up a bit, but no, I'm going to do it because it's got to happen. It's got to happen.
Get your ass in advance. In the chair.
I know.
Or you could try a bit of dragon dictation. So hopefully by the time this episode goes live, we'll have a deep dive on dragon dictation. It's one of many deep dive episodes, almost 50 of them now, that we have exclusively for Patreon listeners. And also, just to tee up what we've got coming soon, we've got this live show coming soon. I've turned into Sean Connery. Right, let's do the rest of the show as Sean. Coming soon on the show, we have Claire Hanscom, Taylor Jenkins-Reid, we have Tade Thompson, Kylie Dunbar, who is Scottish, sorry Kylie, Lorna Cook, Tim Clare, Queef McDonnell, all coming on the show. These are all episodes that we have lined up, main episodes, so they're all amazing authors with amazing stories to tell. We've got more coming from Craig Anderson in the deep dives on Facebook ads and paperbacks, Simon Appleby, who's giving amazing website advice for authors, David Bishop on writing for comics, and Rhoda Baxter and Jane Lovering on comedy writing, which I was supposed to record with them today, but I had it in my diary for next Tuesday, which is kind of funny. So subscribe now.
It's all about timing, mate. It's all about timing.
All about timing.
That's
subscribe
brilliant.
Now and don't miss out. Come and find us online if you've got an idea for a deep dive, if you've got questions to ask. We are open all hours. On Facebook we're Bestseller Experiment, Twitter and Instagram we are at Bestseller XP. Come and say hi on the website bestsellerexperiment.com/contact, probably something like that. Anyway, you'll find it. Brilliant. Come to the website, have a nose around,
sign up to our newsletter there. You'll see the little tab newsletter. We send out weekly overviews plus loads of other great bits and bobs as well, so don't miss out. Mr. Stay, it's been fantastic. I know you've got one more thing that you're desperate to tell us.
The Glastonbury poster.
Yes, we've saved the best to last. We've saved
the best.
This is for everyone who hangs in there to the very end of each episode. Thank you for being with us,
Josh. Glastonbury announced their poster, announced their lineup with a big poster, and I just put where I said, because our book Back to Reality, the big climax is at the Glastonbury Festival. I just said, we got 2 musical acts who appear at Glastonbury in our book. Anyone got any Photoshop skills? Well, Josh Atkinson, above and beyond the call of duty. I'm going to put this on all our social media with a link. Find it, share it, see if anyone can tell the difference between the real poster and our poster. let's have some mischief. Let's have some mischief.
Oh, you know what? It's one of the funniest things I've seen all year. And you know what? The backstory to that is apparently Janet Jackson was announced as a headlining act, but a new poster appeared with her name on it and not the official, and so nobody knew whether she was actually appearing or not, or whether someone had just photoshopped it. I don't even know the end to that story as to whether she is actually appearing or not. But anyway, she appears on our poster as well, but she's not top billing. No, not at all.
Sorry, Janet.
Oh, brilliant stuff. But thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that you've been inspired today. Please come and support us. Keep this podcast going. bestsellerexperiment.com/support. $10 a month. That's it. That's it, folks. And we will give you, $1,000 to $10,000 worth of value, I think, in what you might get through conferences and all those other things that you could spend your money on. So please do keep the show going and put that cup of coffee down and come over to the website now. So, Mr. Stay, it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2. Goodbye!
Goodbye, folks. Bye! Are you ready to transform your writing and your life? Join the 200-word challenge today. In just 5 days, learn to develop a lifelong writing habit with over 2 hours of free expert coaching and the encouragement of a vibrant community. This program has already changed the lives of thousands of writers like you. No matter how busy you are, this challenge will show you that with just 200 words a day, you can significantly boost your creativity, productivity, mental health, and confidence, propelling you towards the end. For the first time, receive comprehensive coaching and step-by-step guidance, all for free. Transform your writing habit and start your journey to become the writer you've always aspired to be. What are you waiting for? Sign up for free now at 200wordchallenge.com and make writing a part of your daily life for life.